That was the big takeaway from the weekend, wasn't it? Prime Minister Narendra Modi in China after a long gap of almost 7 years. And that was quite the significant meeting on the sidelines of the SCO Summit in Tianjin. Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed that peace on the border is essential for strengthening bilateral ties and stabilizing the global economy. In fact, Modi underscored that India and China are development partners, not rivals, and that their relations should not be viewed through the lens of a third country. Both leaders did express satisfaction over troop disengagement along the line of actual control, or the LOAC, and pledged to ensure a fair and mutually acceptable resolution. In fact, Xi Jinping also called the global situation fluid and chaotic and urged stronger India-China cooperation to defend multilateralism and promote multipolar world as well.
सीमा में डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के बीच जुड़े हुए। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा।
That's the word coming in from PM Modi at that meeting. And Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said peace at the border is an insurance policy for bilateral ties. Briefing the media after the Modi-Xi meeting in Tianjin, Misri noted both leaders discussed global economic challenges, including U.S. tariff policies, and explored ways to deepen economic and commercial cooperation. Listen in.
They both agreed that the two countries were primarily focused on their domestic development goals, and in this they were partners rather than rivals. It was also an element of consensus between them that a stable and amicable relationship between India and China can be to the benefit of the 2.8 billion people who live in the two countries. There was originally a proposal from the Chinese side for Mr. Tsai to host a banquet for the Prime Minister on behalf of President Xi Jinping. This was meant as a special gesture to show the importance attached by China to the visit of the Prime Minister, which was taking place after a hiatus of nearly 7 years.
All right, but with this, let's also welcome on board Shaun Rein, who is joining us on the show right now. Hi, Shaun. Good morning and good to be speaking with you. So, Shaun, this SCO meet, where in India and China, they are talking about how they want to grow their exports. They are talking about lifting the travel curbs, and they are saying that both the nation experts are saying that for now, India and China, they are partners and not rivals. Why don't you help us firstly understand that how critical do you think is the timing of this particular meeting, wherein this is coming at a time where the US uncertainty and the tariff uncertainty around is still looming?
Well, it's great to be here. I think I want to bring up one thing for my Indian friends. When Modi came to China, he was welcomed at the airport by singers, dancers, and a giant red carpet. And all of the Chinese state media have been showing pictures of Xi Jinping and Modi together. And they've been saying we need to have good relations between the elephant and the dragon. Let me contrast that with how China welcomed EU leaders like Ursula von der Leyen a couple weeks ago. They welcomed her on a giant school bus. They didn't have anybody of import welcoming her at the bus. And there was no music and certainly no red carpet. So I want to show that so that the people in India know that Xi Jinping and the CPC are signaling to the Chinese people and to the Indian people that we want to have good relations with India. And I think it's really important right now because let me be clear, the United States doesn't want China to grow into a strong superpower. For 8 years, both the Biden and Trump regimes have been trying to contain China's economic growth and political power in the exact same way that they destroyed Japan's economy in the 1980s when Japan got too strong. Now, what's happening right now is under Trump, they want to contain and destabilize India in the exact same way that they destabilized Japan and are trying to destabilize China. So I think it's very important, and I expect great economic trade deals to be named in the next 3 to 6 months, where you're going to get more magnets and batteries from India that can be bought from the Chinese. Hopefully, you're going to see the people-to-people exchanges that have been lacking the last 5 years with direct flights, visas. And I think importantly, and what I hope is going to happen, is that Modi is going to allow Chinese companies like Huawei, like Xiaomi, like TikTok, like NEO, to invest billions of dollars into India to help create jobs in India and help allow Chinese companies to become global players. It's great timing, and it's important for India to know, once again, that China has rolled the red carpet out for Modi and as a sign of respect to the Indian people.
Absolutely. And Shaun, one is wondering, with both leaders now agreeing to sort of enhance economic ties, like you just mentioned, and more importantly, also address India's trade deficit with China. How do you think this new relationship, I mean, Modi has been in China after a hiatus of almost 7 years, and we all saw the show and pomp with which he was actually welcomed. And, visuals of that drone show are, still floating around. But how do you think this could impact the global supply chains? Just taking a leaf from what you were saying, at a time when relations, because of tariffs with the U.S., are so stifled.
So America, Scotty Besson and Trump overplayed their hands when it came to China. They felt that China was going to kneel down to American bullying. But let's be clear, nothing that the Americans make, except for semiconductors and ethane, can the Chinese not make themselves or buy elsewhere. So instead of buying soybeans from America, they're now buying soybeans from Brazil. Instead of buying oil from America, they're buying oil from Canada. Instead of buying beef from America, they're buying beef from Australia. So it's very clear that China has the upper hand in the trade war with the United States, which is why Trump had to fall down and reduce the tariffs from 140 down to 30%. America is in a much weaker position than it was during Trump 1.0. Now, what does that mean for global affairs? What that means, though, is that China needs to offset its trade. In 2017, 17% of its exports went to the United States. That number is down to 14%. So China has de-risked from the U.S., and they've looked to new markets like Latin America and, very importantly, to Southeast Asia, where 18% of exports go. But here's the thing. China needs new markets to grow. It doesn't trust the United States, and it doesn't trust Western Europe. So the best place for it to go is India. And so I hope that Modi will, stop being so obsessed with national security concerns and allow more of the Chinese companies to invest into India to help deal with the $99 billion trade deficit. I think that's an important thing, and it's reasonable for India to be concerned about the trade deficit and say to China that China needs to buy more products from India. I think those people-to-people changes will be clear and good. But here's the thing. China, I think, is more powerful than the United States now when it comes to economic trade. So you're seeing this whole new rise of a new global world order that's going to be more multipolar. It's not going to be China at the top. It's going to be China at the top. I think India is going to be a superpower, and I think the United States will remain one. But this is a great opportunity, I think, for Modi to become a little bit more pragmatic, do deals with China. None of the issues between India and China are too big. The water issue, Ladakh, all of these issues can be discussed and solved through diplomatic means. And hopefully that will have more trade and get rid of the trade deficit.
Sure, Shaun, appreciate that point, and also the point you were making about how China needs to be buying more from India. And in light of this entire tariff situation, China has also gone ahead and said that they would open up the Chinese market for India. So maybe that trade deficit could go ahead and look better. But Shaun, help us understand if there is any sort of negotiation happening from the US, and if going ahead US lowers its tariff on India, do you think that this India-China relation that we're seeing right now and the effort towards strengthening it could still continue on this path?
I can, and it should, because I think, again, as I said, as a country gets too powerful, Japan in the 80s, China 10 years ago, India now, the United States and their national security foreign policy establishment will not allow another country, especially a yellow person country or a brown person country, rise. There's a lot of bigotry throughout the foreign policy and governing establishment in D.C., and there's just a lot of intellectual bigotry, which means that the United States will always try to oppress India. So even if Trump were to lower tariffs and come up to an accommodation with Modi, I think it would behoove the Indian people for Modi to say, okay, let's have good relations with the United States, but we need to get better relations with China. I mean, look at how strong the two nations would be if you had 2.7, 2.8 billion people living in countries that are next to each other, build up two pillars of economic growth. I hope, and I think when you see a lot of Indians, when they visit Tianjin this week, they've seen the drones, they've seen the humanoid robots, they've seen the overall innovation that's taking place in China, and they're going to realize the future is China, the future is India. The United States is running bankrupt, with a $37 trillion in debt. The healthcare system's a mess. I was just in the U.S. last week. They're homeless, mentally ill people, drugged out, roaming the streets. The United States is not in a position to exert power and influence economically throughout the world anymore. It's China with its innovation and hopefully India with good trade. In 20 years, India might catch up to China economically. I think India should be a global economic superpower. And the best way for it to achieve that status is by cooperating with both the U.S. and China, but certainly cooperating more with China than it has in the last 7 years. I think it's been a shame at the tension between the two countries since, really 2017, 2018, even before Ladakh, when India went all in with Quad.
Okay, interesting. Lots to, look forward to. But Shaun, thank you so much for your time today. Well, I guess India's economic prowess is out there in the numbers with the latest GDP figures of 7.8. In fact,